We're back with more Shacknews Awards. We're going to do the award for Best Role-Playing Game, or RPG. Not to be confused with Rocket-Propelled Grenade. We're not giving a Rocket-Propelled Grenade award here. It's Role-Playing Game.
Duke 3D. Oh, okay.
No. Duke is not eligible. Came out in 1996.
All right.
And also not a role-playing game.
It has a good RPG though.
It may be the best one ever.
Yeah.
Very fine rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, Quake has a decent one too.
Yeah.
Anyone want to kick this off with a role-playing game nomination?
Yeah, I'll talk about The Forgotten City, which is a very good RPG. I believe it originally was like a Skyrim mod way back in the day, but it became its own full independent game this year. Set in ancient Rome. It does the it's another time loop story, which is like so popular these days. But this one's really good. It's a very short playthrough for an RPG, but still very enjoyable. The story is very good. I might bring it up again for best narrative. It's really well done. Combat's fun. It's a nice little mini RPG experience. I think it's definitely worth chatting about.
Cool. I think several people are going to bring this game up, but I just noticed that Chris had nominated it too. Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous.
Yeah,
I
I talked about this in the PC game. It was one of my biggest surprises of this entire year, as far as like I went in there expecting. I didn't go in there expecting much, but it was a vast tapestry of story and choices and like personal input, crafting that narrative with your decisions, and also like the characters that follow you. You can become a you can become a dragon god or a lich that just walks in clouds of diseases, or you can just say F that and be a normal human being, or a normal whatever you are. It's it's really vast. Like the way they present that story, it's really vast. Like the effect of like what's going on in the world and how your character fits into it, and then just like the way in which the choices you make early affect things later on in largely consequential ways. I really enjoyed Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous, not just like as for all those narrative choices, but for the fact that it's a really good Dragon Age style RPG in a time where we don't have Dragon Age style RPGs happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, they tend to take some time to make over there at BioWare. So yeah, this is a smaller indie studio too, right, TJ?
Yes.
Cool.
I think it's Owlcat Games. I think it's
nice.
And then, like, I guess just to TJ, the character customization, like you said, is absolutely insane. Like, in terms of how you build your character in that game is vastly involved, more than any other RPG I can think of, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Owlcat Games. But yes, there's like 100 classes even before you start getting into to race, like what god you worship, like what deity you worship has an effect on both your conversations and your some perks and stats that you get.
Is there an atheist option?
There is.
Nice. That's cool. I figured with that level of customization that they would open it up to stuff like that. That's neat.
Mm-hmm.
I need to, I tend to not have time to play RPGs, but I need to check that one out.
Check it out too.
So we got Forgotten City and Pathfinder, what is it?
Wrath of the Righteous.
Wrath of the Righteous. I see several nominations for Monster Hunter Rise. It's more of an action RPG, but it's still an RPG.
It is an RPG.
Would you like more of a classic RPG, Asif? I can speak to that one as soon as somebody speaks to Monster Hunter.
I don't know if you want to talk about Monster Hunter a little bit.
I mean, what's cool is it piggybacks off of everything that they added in Monster Hunter World. and brings it back to a portable handheld Nintendo console, which is one of the places that this franchise has thrived to begin with. It adds the Palamutes. Like there's a you know a cool story involved. It takes everything that like made Monster Hunter, like brought everyone in on Monster Hunter World, and just takes that to anywhere now. I think it's not as visually stunning as World. I mean, it's on the Switch, but the fact that they can take an experience like that and even get it onto
I
a Switch
think it's
console
actually
is like really noteworthy. It's really good looking.
It's one of the best looking Switch games I think has ever been released.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
I actually think it's pretty impressive from a graphical standpoint, art standpoint.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you can't really compare it to World. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why they didn't port World
Yeah.
to Switch. Like they couldn't. So
Yeah.
they built Rise, and I
Yeah.
feel like Rise also just from the quest mechanic, it just seems like it flows better than any Monster Hunter game that they've shipped. It felt
Yeah.
less like a chore to figure out what to do next. Like the NPCs, I thought were slightly better designed. Yeah, it's the Monster Hunter series is formulaic, but they have been updating it to make it less, uh, I guess, easier to onboard people. And I think
That's what it says.
Rise is probably the most accessible one that they've shipped yet.
Yeah. Yeah. The kicker is the online, like getting together with people to play online is they haven't improved that at all.
That has been an
Really.
issue forever.
I think
And
that's my one rub. But
yeah,
but I feel like the single player experience for Rise is improved over World.
mhm.
Just by adding the Palamute in there and having like another companion,
Having a
that
mount that you can just like call on and customize the stuff is very cool.
yeah, yeah.
But
Because
yeah,
like usually when you're playing Monster Hunter and you're playing with friends, like you're rolling like at least with like two other people, so having like a Palico and a Palamute at your disposal now, I think ups. It helps. Yeah, it definitely helps more like having, because this game will kick your butt, especially when you're on your own. Um, so yeah, just having that added help was really good. And it's just
my issues with the
solid.
Monster Hunter series have to do with the amount of time that they ask of you, and that's why I kind of missed out on World. I was like, you kids have fun over there, and, and then with Rise, I played enough to really get an idea of what they had changed. But yeah, I had played a lot of Monster Hunter. I want to say 3 for the Wii U was the last time that I put like a few hundred hours into one of these games, and they do take that much time. Like you could spend a lot of time in Rise.
I think I hit like 500 hours in World, and there was a few in-game activities that I hadn't touched yet.
Yeah, so these games they're worth the $60, honestly. When it comes to the time
and
you get out of them.
Capcom gives them a ton of support too. They actually just announced like an expansion.
They have expansions and events. They usually support these games for at least 2 years.
Couple years, yeah. No,
Let's get nomination.
I mean, you want to talk like, and I know it's an action RPG, but like you grind like it's a JRPG, regular JRPG in those games.
Yeah,
but
it has elements that all RPGs have, but it is a little more action, which for me is I'm more interested in playing action RPGs in general.
Yeah, like the thing about it, every hunt feels like a big thing, and obviously, yeah, as you level up, like smaller or like earlier missions aren't as challenging or whatever, but in general, yeah, you definitely you feel that progression, and they it's not like you get to the end game and shit becomes a breeze. There's
I
still
really do
much
feel
more
like
to do.
some people are sleeping on this game. It is one of the best Switch games to come out this year. It came out early. I want to say it was a January, February, March release or whatever. But yeah, like I think those games tend to be forgotten later in the year. But yeah, I'm glad you nominated it. But we gotta move on to another
Totally.
nomination.
Yeah, let's go. Let's keep it going.
Ozzy, what you got?
Well, a game that came out even earlier that this year is Bravely Default 2, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a classic JRPG, right down to right down to the isometric view, right down to the turn-based battles. Uh, it's rich in story. Like all four of your party members all have rich backstories. There are a lot of fun to explore. They're memorable characters, and on top of that, what makes Bravely Default 2 so great to me was the job system. There are over 2 dozen jobs in this game, and on top of that, you can have a main job and a sub job. So you can mix and match abilities, and your battles can play out. You can have different character builds. And on top of that, some of the jobs are really kind of original. Like there's a pictomancer where the idea is you have a celestial brush and you can paint debuffs on your enemies. You have a beastmaster who can capture enemies and you can send them out Pokemon style. And they actually do work really effectively against bosses. I was really kind of blown away at how short some of those boss battles ended up being because I'm like, oh, I captured like a really high end like mid-tier enemy, threw it at the boss. And it's like, oh crap, it hit for 9,999. And there's jobs like the Phantom, which like it exploits debuffs and like it hits for it focuses on critical hits. Exploring and experimenting is so much fun in that game, and I absolutely as a JRPG, it's one of my favorites to come along in the last few years, and really helped bring that series along because the Bravely Default series is one that gets forgotten easily, like among Square's franchises. And I really hope they can make more out of it.
Yeah, the Bravely series has been, I think it was on 3DS, right?
Yes.
Last generation. It was like a shining game on that platform. Like it was very good, and I had a lot of friends that had hundreds of hours in it.
That's without getting even into like the central premise of the series. It's the central gimmick of the series itself, which is just like you can take your turn or you can pass and hold on to take multiple turns later on.
Mhm.
And the way that you can kind of manipulate that or actually like take away somebody's turn or you can steal certain actions. Like I love that kind of metagame to it, and actually was a nice evolution to that JRPG formula.
Mhm. Solid nomination. And yeah, kind of like Rise, another Switch game came out very early this year. I remember there was a direct that felt like it was only RPGs, and these were two of the ones that were announced. I think this was like a 2020 direct. But yeah.
And if you're
Uh,
on PC, it came out a lot more recently, so
mhm.
go pick it up on PC.
Yep. Do we have any other nominations?
I
No.
don't think so. Doesn't sound like it.
I feel like we're sleeping on Tales of Arise, guys. That's a
Tales of Arise has been a thing that I've been playing for like the last 2 months, and I really, really like that game.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I
Um,
think we would be chumps to not at least mention it in this category. It's I haven't played it as much as I've watched it, but I have a few friends that are like huge fans of the series, and they say this is like one of the best ones in the Tales series. So
yeah, they kind of fell into a slump for a while where the last two Tales games weren't that great. This one picked it up and put together a good story, a good combat system. It feels like there are a lot of elements of Star Ocean in there that are really fun, and because you have like you have up to 4 player parties, or I'm sorry, up to 4 character parties, and so you mix and match attackers and magic users, and like the attackers can do straight up like combos and mix skills into their combos, while the magic users are in the back like prepping spells, and I really like that sort of tactical on the fly. It's on the fly action, but it's also some level of tactical to it where you need to defend your spellcasters and keep the enemies busy with like upfront attacks if you're going to get those spells off.
nice. So yeah, I wanted to mention that before we moved on. There was
I think it's
also
definitely worth it.
I don't remember who reviewed this, but is Scarlet Nexus worth bringing up in this category?
Scarlet Nexus is a really fun action RPG. But it's funny because I went back to my top 10 and I thought for sure that it was going to end up there, and it didn't. I don't know, and I don't know what it is. It's not a bad game at all.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed Scarlet Nexus, but I'm trying to think of anything about it that really stands out to me, and I'm sort of blanking at the moment.
And like we obviously run into this problem every year when we cast our ballots for Game of the Year and Indie Game of the Year, where we provide 10 games. I really felt like I could easily provide 20 games for both of these lists this year. There were a lot of games that I had to leave off.
It has some of that satisfying visceral combat that you got out of something like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, but like outside of like the really outside of like that action, I can't think of anything that really stood out to me about the story necessarily.
Sure. And that's kind of important in an RPG. Like you want to somewhat care about what's going on, especially because you're investing hundreds
I know
of hours.
people liked that, like in between missions, you could just like go do mundane tasks with like some of your party members and get to know them better. But for me, that didn't click to me so much because I'm like, for one, there's a huge alien invasion going on. What are you going to Starbucks for? And another thing is like, I don't know. It just felt like it ground the game to a halt.
Ozzy, you want me to deal with an alien invasion and not have my green tea? Come on.
Tales of Arise does that good too. You basically the basic premise is you've got 5 powerful lords messing things up in different ways. Go kill them one by one.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I think that's a good batch. Oh wait, Denny has top rope coming off the top rope with another one. What we got here?
Well, there was another RPG on Switch that I feel like I should bring up because a ton of my friends have been playing it and sharing screenshots constantly. That's Shin Megami Tensei 5 has been making the rounds in my friend group, and they have been really enjoying it. So I definitely had to bring that one up. I mean, from what I've seen in the story, it seems pretty interesting. Definitely seems grindy like a JRPG, which is why I probably would never finish it. But the folks who are into that are really into it, and they've been sharing like video and all kind of cool like battle stuff and some of the stuff they find.
That game
and stuff too.
That game's release just made me want to go back and play Persona 5 Royal. Like I'm like, oh yeah.
I mean,
I still need to beat that game.
I mean, I understand the grind of JRPGs, but the Shin Megami Tensei series, like, oh my god, it's one of those like beyond, it's like beyond grind. Like you got to be serious about that shit.
Yeah.
They want to give you. I don't know. I think that series just wants
value.
You to keep playing it. And
I get it. No, the people I know that play the Shin Megami games, they like are all like hundreds of hours into it. Yeah. It's made for those type of people, absolutely. But I think it also stops it from really getting like more like accessible. There's the accessibility.
You're talking about like crossover appeal to like the mainstream, like what we saw with Monster Hunter World. Like I don't think you're going to see happen with this series, but on the other side, this series has a very large built-in devoted fan base in America and overseas.
It's definitely different now. Like JRPGs, especially like tough ones that have a lot of grind to them, are part of the like gaming zeitgeist now in America. And for a long time, games like Shin Megami and even Yakuza were very niche, and like it was hard for them to get ported over to America. And now it's a given that like this stuff is going to come out. So yeah, I feel like the attitude towards them has definitely changed, and they've definitely gained popularity. But it's still, I feel like it's still for the most hardcore amongst the hardcore.
There's nothing like that moment where you find out that you need to grind more and that the game actually is more of a grind than you expect. I had that moment with Bravely Default 2 where I was just like easily wiping out like minor enemies to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, I feel really good about myself. And then I walk into the final boss and I just got trucked. And it's like, well, that's going to take another few hours.
The Bravely series tends to do that to you, Ozzy. Like I remember
there's a huge curve.
I think Bravely Second had this like moment in it where you're like, oh crap, I have to do the whole game over again now.
Oh no, that's a whole other thing where it's like, oh jeez, that's the issue with those games. And
I didn't want to bring it up,
but
then you mentioned that, and I was like, I remember this from a few years ago with Bravely Second, where people were like, it's great. And then you have to do it all.
See, I don't want to talk myself out of my choice, which is why I'm not going to mention the big issue why I won't get the good ending. So I'm just going to skip over that.
Well, and like, I'm not going to drag this out too much, but like the one thing I did want to give a shout out to, the closest that the Persona and Shin Megami Tensei series will ever come to reaching across the aisle and being more accessible is probably Persona 5 Strikers.
Yeah.
Because it's much more action oriented. It moves along at a much faster pace. You spend a lot less time grinding in an area, and you're still collecting monsters as you go and leveling them up, which
that's on Switch, right?
It's on Switch and PS5. PS4,
but Persona
PS5.
5 isn't on Switch. Yeah. Why do they do this?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, P5 Strikers.
They put everything besides Persona 5 on Switch.
And didn't they put that Persona Musu game also on Switch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing to us? Just give us. We want Persona 5 on Switch.
I mean, PC people want Persona 5 too. I mean, PC people are like, yeah, Persona 4. Too. PC also has the Muso game.
What is... Okay, Atlas, Sega, all you folks over in Japan, just give us... Please understand.
It took them almost a decade to bring Persona 4 Golden to PC.
Okay, we have a lot of nominations here, so I'm going to cut it off. Unless there's some amazing game that we forgot, which we probably did. Didn't, Riot ship an RPG this year? Ruined King?
I don't know. Yeah, they came out with a steel chair out of nowhere, and I didn't get a chance to play it.
I've heard good things. Anyway. I think we should vote. I'm going to start with Chris. Chris voted for Pathfinder, I believe. I'm going to hold off my vote because I honestly, I don't know.
Man,
wait, are you sticking with Monster Hunter or what are you doing here?
There's a lot of good stuff here. Yeah, I'm going to stick with Monster Hunter Rise, I think. I think that's the way I'm going to go.
Bill?
Pathfinder.
Z?
Bravely Default 2.
You didn't talk yourself out of it. You almost did. TJ?
Yeah. I was thinking about Tales of Arise a lot because I really have enjoyed the heck out of that game. Mm-hmm. But the power of Pathfinder is in that replayability that we've talked about a lot. I could play that game 10 different times, and depending on the character choices that I make and the choices in the story, could have a drastically different storyline 10 hours in.
Yeah, that feels like a Baldur's Gate kind of Pillars sort of replayability level. And that to me at the core that's like an RPG right there. Greg?
Gotta go with Pathfinder.
Nice. Donovan?
I'll vote for Monster Hunter.
That's my dude.
Danny?
Here's my guy.
Yeah, this category is kind of I don't know. I'm kind of where Asif is as far as this one goes.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Man.
What a good year for RPGs.
Yeah.
Right?
How about we take a second to applaud all these devs for shipping awesome games this year?
Hey.
But yeah, you have to vote.
Yeah. I guess I'll give it the Rise because it did get me playing on Switch with my friends, so that's a plus.
It's good. They made I could tell you as a Nintendo fan when World shipped, I was like, wow, okay, I see how it is, Capcom.
It's a full circle moment.
And then they came back and they're like, here's Rise and Stories, right? Like they gave us 2 Monster Hunter games in the same damn year. It's really nice. David, what you got?
I'll go with Pathfinder. It sounds right up my alley.
Sweet. I'm gonna look up Sam's vote real quick.
Halo Infinite?
No. I don't think Halo Infinite qualifies.
You said open world. Yeah, let's go for it.
Sam voted for Monster Hunter Rise.
Hey.
Yeah. So this puts me in an interesting situation. I could cause a vote off, which would basically just be Ozzy. Or I could just vote for Pathfinder. Or I could vote for any of these other games that didn't get any votes. Which would be a vote for Pathfinder, essentially. I'm just going to vote for Pathfinder. Based on everything I've heard and the gameplay I've seen, this is a game that I actually want to try. I don't have time for many RPGs, so it's tough for me to really judge this category. But
is there a multiplayer
in Pathfinder?
Yeah.
No, it's a single player game.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna give it to Pathfinder here. It is a 6-4-1 vote. So, congratulations. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is our Shacknews RPG role-playing game of the year 2021.
Duty calls to you. Prove your worth as a leader. Hone your skills and abilities. Ready your best armor and weapons for battle. Mount your trusty war steed and charge forth, and we shall follow.